Welcome to Underdeveloped. I'm your host, Kwesi Obika, and I'm here to discuss resiliency. And not just being resilient. Being resilient is about working with limited resources. Exactly. It's a challenge. It's hard. It's hard for people to understand that it's sometimes it's more freeing to be restricted. And let me get back to you on that. It's it's a weird concept, the idea of oh, you can't do something. It's like you feel like oh, you're trapped. You feel like you're confined, but constraints actually set you free. They say discipline is freedom, restraints. That's what really set me free. And it wasn't getting arrested or anything. That's not the constraints I'm talking about. Just growing up low middle class, you had to work harder. You had to kind of make sure you got every drop out of that shampoo bottle. You gotta get those luscious locks. So you gotta do what you gotta do to make sure that everything is used to its optimal potential, and that's exactly what you realize when you start setting constraints for yourself. I wanted to start this year off with a project. I watched a lot of videos by um, Captain Sinbad, and that was just very inspiring. One of his recent videos was the 100-day challenge. So it was just like, hey, this is a really cool idea of just like, hey, pick one thing and just stick through with it. And you can get a lot of growth from doing something like that. You will start to realize that those everyday, like, take those, everyday steps in the same direction can get you pretty far. You can get really far by just making the same action over and over again. But you know this. I knew, hey, maybe doing something every day is a good thing. But why is it so hard to do? Why is it so hard to do the same thing, do the right thing over and over again? That's because we allow ourselves to we live in an unconstrained life, and that's an amazing thing. I'm so grateful to have the level of freedom I'm that's accessible to me, living in the USA, living in Colorado, where there's a lot of freedom of not just ways of living life, but also ways of experiencing life out here. You can be skiing, fishing, anything. You can do pretty much. You can do it all out here, and not a pitch to move out here. Just saying, hey, we have those opportunities here that allow me to experience the full breath of freedom that at least a breath of freedom that I enjoy. And with that, there's so much that um, allows for your mind to wander. You're able to, when we want to do the right thing, we have to choose. It sometimes feels like we're choosing not to do all those other things. You have to make a conscious choice to be like, oh, I want to read a book every night. So that means I'm not able to keep up with these new forms of media out there. I'm not able to continue working on a project. I'm not able to exercise, get second exercise in that night. There's so many things that I feel like I'm restricting myself of. And that is what makes sticking with a good choice really hard. It's not that since we can never know if that good choice is the best choice. There's no guarantee in that, and that's just it's a it's makes it not having that certainty, like this is like the best thing you can be doing in this exact moment. It's hard to tell, okay, if something else comes along, don't do that thing. So, yeah, making the right choice consistently is a game changer. It moves the needle and sets you on the path to success. We know this. But we don't know, or what I realized I didn't know was, how do I stay on a path when my mind wanders, when there's multiple options on the table? And a concept I really want to talk about today is the while loop. How do you while loops keep computers more efficient than if they were to just make a choice every single time? And the concept that I really want to get across with a while loop is the single choice it makes. It makes one choice, and then it just goes from there. It's it's why computers are able to be so efficient. It's not asking, and I definitely want to break this down a little bit more as well, just so you can see exactly what I mean by the while loop. But the way a while loop works is that when you meet a certain condition, the loop breaks. But until that condition is met, it just keeps on cycling through, checks the conditions met. If not, keeps on going. So, what if we lived our lives like a while loop? Because we don't. We live our lives like a switch statement. That's how I felt, at least. And how a switch statement works is it goes into a list of options, and worse than a switch statement is a variable switch statement. Imagine the options of this switch keeps on changing. Instead of being like an on-off light switch, which is pretty much like the most basic version of a switch statement, is either true or false. That's what a while loop is. Sees once a condition is true, do this. Once it's false, don't do it anymore. So a switch statement can have any number of conditions. It could be like pretty much a series of, if this condition is met, then do this. If a condition underneath that, like a sub condition, is met, then do that instead. And this is how we live our lives. And the variable nature of those options available to us makes it very inefficient and kind of can cloud up our judgment. Having this analysis paralysis is something I've noticed in my own life. Is you have all these options set out in front of you, and you don't know which one to make, and going over the pros and cons of which, you kind of forget about the main pro of any solution is it gets the problem handled. It solves that problem in a timely fashion as well. It shouldn't take years just to make a decision on maybe the font color of your background. These analysis paralysis type things can slow down an organization to the point that you're just losing money because you're not able to manage inefficiencies or manage obstacles in a timely manner. You're just trying to make the best decision, but the non-making a decision also should be on the table. That should be a catch-all, and sometimes we don't have that. So let me get back to the computer concepts. That's what we're all here for. We want to learn how computers think. You want to learn how to think more systematically, and that's exactly what I want to give you. So the switch statement, there's usually almost a break case. You want to have that if, and as I started like adulting harder, getting to those next levels, trying to stop cooking out, like starting to stop eating out and cooking at home more, I realized there's like certain meals that just come easier, more naturally to me. Like, okay, I can make pasta and sausage, no problem. It's like a 15, 15 minute meal for me. It would be pretty easy to whip up, but it's still, I won't be eating that every night. So instead of using that as a go-to meal, maybe treating that as the default option, using that as a way to, just in case I am running late from my commute home or something, I can have that as a backup. So a decision is still being made that meets those my cooking requirements. So that's something that is helping me be more on top of the food I eat, as well as being more on top of like what I how I want to accomplish my goals. So kind of setting a default option in those decisions. So maybe the first answer you can think of, okay, that's the default option. Like if I can't make a decision within the next 15, if I can't make a better choice within the next 15 minutes, I'm doing the default. And that can help get away from that analysis paralysis instead of like, okay, let's search for the best answer. Like, oh, I found a good answer. Give me 15 more minutes to find a better one. If not, I'll go with the good one. And that's a great way of just helping with that decision fatigue. And that's another thing that limits our ability to kind of stay on the path, that limits our ability to kind of just get those incremental changes, that compounding effect, those to get that slight edge on things, to get the what was that? The atomic changes. We are we're bombarded with choices all day. Do you want to send in a like two-step verification? These micro choices are constantly eating away at our attention, and I feel like it's more so a feeling at this point of the drain that it takes on my mental clarity to, and it's definitely it is a real thing, the idea of context switching. And that's something I want to talk to you guys about in a future episode, when I get into like resource management and how computers handle that. But right now, just the idea of this context switching, this mental fatigue of how do you handle certain problems, how do you stay consistent with something, and is that is that sorry, that is done by making less choices, making the choice once and just checking if you've accomplished that goal yet. And that can help with the just kind of takes some options off the table. Like, hey, like when you know your personality, when you know who you are. For instance, if you're a drummer for a band, you know your role. You know exactly what you're doing. You're not going to go up to a rehearsal and like, do I have to play the guitar today? What is the lyrics of the song? You know what you're doing. You know, you walk in there confident, knowing, hey, I'm gonna get behind this drum kit and just rock out. You know exactly what your role is, and you can start thinking about new ways to enhance that your ability in that role. But if you are just like, we're kind of putting something together, we're doing a little band thing, like all open ended, and like, hey, some people should stop by, like play whatever instrument you want. We only need to play the same instrument the next time. It's like, that's everyone says, oh, be free, have fun and stuff. Like, no, we need like some defined edges. And I feel like it's very important to know your role, just to understand, okay, this is what I do, this is who I am, and that kind of leads down the whole idea of like identity and stuff. But I think I wanted to touch on this earlier was the idea of the concept of identity is the choices you're making, and is the actions you take. It's my concept of my concept of identity is tied closely to my idea of action. Is like you are what you do, in a sense. So if you're a helpful person, that means you must be helping people. It's not just you say what you are and then you are that. It's you say what you are, you enforce that by doing it, and then you get better at it every single day. So you don't just become a gamer, you play video games every day, and then that reinforces that identity. So when it comes to taking consistent action, you kind of rely on the role you want to take. You rely on, hey, if I want to be a podcaster or a speaker, then I have to do that consistently. I have to show up and take those actions that show that I am a podcaster, a web developer, a project manager, and do those things in a consistent manner. So yeah, now that established that you have to have an identity, and that can be maybe it can be challenging, especially if you're younger. You may not know, like, okay, this is the identity that I'm trying to embody, and or if this is the identity that or this is the role I want for this period of my life. So, but once you have that identity established, then it becomes, okay, this what actions do I need to take, and from there, let's say to become a web developer or a a web developer, for instance, some skills you need to have are being comfortable within an IDE, be comfortable reading documentation on websites with frameworks, understanding how to read, I guess, technical answers from like Stack Overflow, and just kind of knowing what's possible out there, seeing, okay, how can I solve this problem in a practical way using, I guess, maybe this programming language, maybe working around this framework, and how the project is being served up to the end user. So just having that level of knowledge and knowing, okay, these are the tasks I need to accomplish, then you can start doing those. Once you have those tasks, then you can build those into a while loop. So what I mean by building them in a while loop. So let's say coding every day. So that's part of the while loop. So you have to kind of set some time aside to actually code, and then once you are able to do that, then just being consistent. Like this time I'm going to be home, be coding, and coding actually takes some time to get into. So I guess understanding the framework. So I would always say, if you're planning on programming or coding, give yourself like a 3 hour window, just so you can, it takes some time to warm up to it as well. If you're not continuing a project day in, day out, but give yourself like a 3 hour window to really just kind of warm your brain up to the project at hand, kind of familiarize with the code base. If you're maybe starting up a project from scratch, then you kind of have to get through those getting started documents, and then you're able to hit the ground running and start testing out the project a little bit. But still, just give yourself the amount of time you need to really succeed in that task. Don't give yourself too little that it's just becomes impractical to really be successful at it, and then you're kind of having to go against the negative cycle, negative feedback cycle that, oh, I'm not able to succeed at this, but are you really giving yourself time to succeed at it? Another example of just kind of taking the decisions out of it is having a workout routine. For instance, when I used to, whenever I go to the gym and just be like, okay, just work out, it's so unsuccessful. I'm like so unproductive. I'm on my phone a lot more and I'm just kind of wandering around. Like, I could lift, I guess. I could maybe run a mile. It just all over the place. But when I say, okay, hey, I'm going to do legs. I'm doing a push pull leg routine or something. Then I'm able to craft a workout routine for that particular day, and it just helps me kind of stay focused, stay on point without just being like, oh, I can do whatever I want, and then you start making no decisions. You just, hey, things are coming easy. Let's see, and yeah, just limiting those choices. So maybe, yeah, just kind of realizing, hey, it's putting those limits on your life to kind of keep that routine, and it definitely helps when we're writing a program, when you just kind of limit the number of options or the number of parameters something needs. It keeps the code cleaner, keeps it more readable, usable. Other people can implement that piece of software. It becomes a lot more modular. Okay, so if you just give you one option or maybe three, it's like, hey, you can do this, this, or this, and from there you're able to kind of actually see like what other parameters really matter to you. So that was Underdeveloped. It's been a long time since the last episode, but hey, record this one, and it was good. It was good. Peace.